a dial. Put on your tin hat. The next 55 minutes may result in a total change in your lifestyle, your attitudes, and even your brain may shrink. Oh, no, they've just banned outhouses in Fairbanks, Alaska. I mean, where can a man think? Archaeologists exploring the tombs under the pyramids of Giza in Egypt discovered recently a number chiseled into the stone in several conspicuous places by an artisan of a long-forgotten race. The numerals, when interpreted into the figures of modern day, read as follows. A sinister number carved on the base of the Great Pyramid of Giza. The number reads 2520. We repeat. No, that's not right. Speaking of forgotten races, please take them marbles out of your mouth, kid. All right, don't throw up here. 2520. That is the mystery number. If any of you out there tonight hold the ticket stub marked 2520, you are in line for some surprises. You have won the Eternal Solar Mystery Race jackpot. The meaning of the numerals remained a mystery for quite some time until a probing mathematician came up with the fact that the number 2520 is divisible by any number from 1 to 10. It is the only possible number of all the number combinations in the entire lexicon of numbers that can be so divided. Thank you, Marnie. I just thought you ought to know that there's so many things out there that you got to worry about. No, it's 2520. Why did they carve that on the bottom of a pyramid? And by the way, speaking of mysterious, you see, it's the Egyptians. They had no idea that somebody 422 million years later would wonder about that number. Now, that could be just the serial number of that particular pyramid. Well, we put serial numbers on everything. I mean, cans of soup, anything's got a serial number, and that could be just the serial number, that pyramid. It's just a coincidence, you know? It's something simple as that. Really? And we're sitting here with slide rules trying to figure out what mysterious knowledge that the ancients had that we do not have. Which, by the way, is another one of the great mystery questions of our age. We'd like to tonight salute Philip Kelly. Please, would you give me my number 2 tape there, my salute music? Tonight, as mystery marches on, evil and triumph of good is once again long delayed. And a mystery figure wearing a large green horse gallops out of the screen. He waves his fire hat, kicks the large green horse in the rump. The horse bucks and throws him off into the weeds. Another cereal goes down a drain. We'd like to salute Philip Kelly, an English rock guitar player, who last week threw fireworks around while he was feeling high and destroyed 34,000 acres of forest by fire, and they don't have many acres of forest in England. He was ordered by the judge to spend his 4-month sentence serving with the Forest Service fire crew. Which wasn't easy since his hair was over 8 feet long. And he had webbed feet. And wore highly inflammable jeans made out of Kleenex. And today, Philip Kelly is the most enthusiastic member of the firefighting crew fighting flames in the drought-ridden woods all over the country and has given up marijuana and says he will become a Mormon. Bring it up. There's a lesson in it for all of us. Oh, yeah. Oh, they're singing our song. I was excited. That was tonight's salute to the New York Jets. And, hi, George, it's exciting. Now, by the way, we'd like to, speaking of terrible moments in man's life, we, of course, since it is a Saturday night, you know, and, yeah, it is, after all, let's face it, what are you going to do, you know? If you're in such bad trouble, friends, that you're listening to the show, you're listening to the radio on Saturday night, well, you're in trouble. I mean, Saturday night, it's like musicians, you know. It used to be that a musician was ready to commit suicide if he had a night off on New Year's. If you weren't working on New Year's, give up the guitar. I mean, forget it, you know. Even the accordions, you know, the whole bit. Well, if you're sitting around listening to the radio tonight, Saturday night, what can I say, friend? Well, of course, there's those unkind folk who can say, if you're sitting around doing a radio show on Saturday night, please, Marty, if you will, please. I just feel in the mood here. I just feel in the mood for a little sneaky stuff. Anytime. You know, I think since this is the end of the summer, which is sad, you know, I love summer. And since this is the end of the summer, and this will be the last occasion that I will have to play this particular piece until next year, till the next solstice. Isn't that what they call that thing that goes arching through the sky there once in a while? Or is that Apollo? No, wouldn't it be groovy if a great male fist would come down tomorrow with lightning bolts sticking out of it? Can you imagine how Lyle Van would announce that on the news? Or would they put that on the weather? You know, a giant male fist came down and destroyed Babylon. Please. Oh, I'm sorry. It's the end of summer. The Shep is going to play his last summertime Jews harp solo. Summertime, we're a party in the good old summertime, yeah. Everything is really normal. Everything is hotsy-totsy now, yeah. Oh, the Mets are 42 games out of first. They're working their way into the American Association. In the good old summertime when Cleon Jones's average is falling and Eddie Kranepool is, well, he's Eddie Kranepool. In the good old summertime, in the good old summertime, yeah. When the action out at the old Dairy Queen gets good and hot and everybody is buying nothing but Jimmy's and all the whole, you know, everything, man, in the good old summertime, ba-ba-da-doo, in the good old summertime. When they are bumper to bumper on the Jersey Turnpike, heading from nowhere to nothing, just sitting out there blowing their horns in a good old summertime, in a good old summertime, yeah. When New York is a summer fist fight, in a good old summertime, in a good old summertime in Fun City, yeah. When the cigar butts are knee-deep on 6th Avenue, in a good old summertime when Times Square is unbelievable in a good old summertime. Bring it up, Marty. Quack, 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 yeah. Ho, 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 ba, 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 hooray. For women who live, yeah. thing, yeah. Good old summertime. Hooray for Gore Vidal in this season. Hooray for Normie Mailer, too. Hooray for Betty Bryden, yeah. Hooray for Gloria Steinem, yeah. Oh, everything is hotsy-totsy now. The Mets are 14.5 games out of first, yeah. Oh, summertime is proceeding as per schedule. In a good old summertime. Yeah, Hang you. Shoo. I'm singing good. Sorry, John. A lot of bad things you're going to find in your life. Speaking of bad things, we would like to salute a pilot here tonight. You know, you all hear of pilot error, right? Well, pilot error is like any other kind of error. You know, the guy grabs the wrong knob or... you know, you could do a lot of great things in an airplane, but we'd like to salute a Belgian Air Force wing commander. And that's a pretty big guy. A Belgian Air Force wing commander on a training flight in a Swedish aircraft Wednesday fumbled under his seat to tighten his safety belt. And all of a sudden, a little echo chamber, Marty. Blow! He was catapulted through the cockpit hood 250 feet above the plane into the sky. And I grabbed the wrong knob. As he parachuted to safety, looking a little nervous, a shaken Swedish flight sergeant sitting in the back seat who had never flown one of these planes before, Bengt Donberg, landed the Saab Jet 105 trainer with a gigantic gaping hole in the cockpit hood. The Swedish Air Force, reporting the incident, said that the Belgian officer, named Wing Commander Duelhuis, had inadvertently pressed the ejector seat release button. His helmet saved him from serious injuries, and he was only unbelievably embarrassed. And we now quote the Swedish officials, and I kind of think this is the ultimate in cool. Brack. This is a Swedish spokesman getting ready to, speak for thousands of microphones. Brack. I'm sure that he will find the incident amusing in retrospect. He'll find the incident amusing in retrospect. Can't you see him 10 years from now sitting around a bar, drunk as a skunk, and he's talking to these two guys? What you should have seen today is a day when I grabbed the wrong buttons in this Saab 105 jet fighter. Swoop up, okay, yeah, go. Oh my God, it was a fantastic thing. And the sergeant, you should have seen the look on the sergeant's face when I left. I was going up, 500 feet. He looks up at me and says, "Where you going?" I says, "Guy, I'm going all right. I the wrong button, And he says, "Well, I'll tell you, music in retrospect." Yeah, I'm sure. Many people find head-on crashes amusing in retrospect, especially if it got their Aunt Clara. In the good old summertime. Well, Aunt Clara, she was getting kind of a drag. Speaking of one of the great things about living in this town, and I don't know whether you guys, appreciate some of the really richer things about living in New York. This is a town that is rich and ripe and great tradition. It's just everywhere you look. You can palpably feel the tradition in this town. For example, we got a tradition in this town of tough guys. Thugs. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Did any of you get a chance a couple of weeks ago or so to see a movie on one of the late channels, late movie channels, about, it was starring Betty Hutton called The Incendiary Blonde. Get a chance to watch that? Well, I'll tell you, the mob in this thing, Texas Guinan. It was about Texas Guinan. And Texas Guinan was a famous lady of her day. And one day I'm sitting in a camp. Now, if you don't know who Texas Guinan was, don't immediately call up and write and all that jazz and say, "Yes, I remember, you must be my age because I..." No, Texas Guinan is a very famous figure in folklore in America. And yes, she really is. And Texas Guinan had a famous nightclub in the middle of Manhattan. And it was called Texas Guinan's, according to what they said. Now, don't immediately think I never saw the place. It was well before my time. I'm just telling you, this is a famous story. It's like, she's like Babe Ruth, famous chick. And she ran this nightclub. And they had scenes in this movie of the mob moving in. And it was one of the very few scenes in movies that I've ever seen where the real klutziness of the mobs was shown, you know. One of the saddest, silliest pictures I've seen in years, a couple of months back or a month or so ago on TV, they tried to do Al Capone, you know. Can you imagine Jason Robards as Al Capone? Well, he was even funnier than you think. He was about as convincing as my Aunt Min, you know, trying to play King Kong. But nevertheless, yeah, he just didn't quite make it as Al. And George Siegel, who's a friend of mine and a very elegant, fastidious type guy, he's trying to play a Chicago trigger man. About as unbelievable as Mickey Mouse getting the job, you know, to play Paul Newman in a remake of HUD. It was a bad scene, but that nevertheless was a very inadvertently funny, a lot of ways. And they tried to reproduce, you know, how tough the mob was, and you never got any pity. They were tough at all. There was a Technicolor, and they had these little pop guns and stuff. But I want to tell you, in Incendiary Blonde, this mob, you see, tough guys, man, walk in, and they take over the club. And the way they did it, you know, totally without any grimacing, you know, no Peter Falk bits, you know, none of this stuff, you know. They just walk in, and they says, "We want to talk to you." And the guy who ran the club says, what, yes, sir, what about? Just want to talk to you. Come on back to the office. And they go back to the office. And the club is going, everybody's running around wearing paper hats, and the band is playing. They walk back into the office, and the mob guy, he looked very smooth, by the way. He didn't have that, you know, the evil look of a Jack Palance. And he just looked like a little bit like a defrocked insurance man, you know, a little bit like your Equitable man, you know. He arrives back there and he looks around saying, the office is great. I said, not bad. And then he showed you how the mob really works. All he did was just sit down in the boss's chair, lean back, says, not bad. Reaches into his pocket and he takes out a paper. Here, sign this. Guy looks at it, he says, what do you mean? It's a contract to buy the joint. I don't want to sell. Sign it. So you want to sign it now? If you don't sign it in 3 minutes, it's going to be, how much does it say there? Just $25,000. 3 minutes, it'll be 20. In 5 minutes, it'll be 15. In 10 minutes, well, they tell me there's a lot of room at the bottom of the Hudson. Did you hear about Jaime last week? Unfortunately, he fell into a concrete mixer. They tell me Jaime's at the bottom of the river. They also tell me there's a lot more room there. Better sign the paper. He signed. Wouldn't you? Played very cool. See, real cool. Well, did you see the little bit in the paper recently? If you're out of, you know, if you're not in New York, you might have missed it. You know, this whole Colombo thing, you know, whole business is still being reported in the paper, see? It says the improved health of reported mafia boss Joseph Colombo has caused an epidemic of, quote, yellow fever and upset stomachs among the underworld, according to law enforcement intelligence circles. These sources report that the underworld is busily arming itself in fear that Joe Colombo is going to recover and come out and lead a retaliatory war against his enemies. Cops have arrested over a dozen, quote, healed hoods in recent weeks. You know what a healed hood is? That's a guy that's carrying, man. He's carrying artillery, ranging from teenage torpedoes to the usually mild and unarmed numbers runners, one of whom was in his 80s. The nervousness, now listen to this, here's where the great touch comes in. The nervousness of organized crime has led to some odd incidents. On Monday, a mob-owned police dog, kind of like this tough police dog, you know, he's in the mob. A mob-owned police dog was seized by FBI agents making a routine check on a Manhattan gang hangout. A suspicious agent peeked under a chest bandage on the dog and found a fully loaded .38 caliber pistol. The dog was healed. He was carrying artillery around. When none of the men present admitted ownership of the gun-toting canine, he was turned over to the ASPCA. Can you imagine this tough mob police dog arriving at the ASPCA? You know, they got all these cocker spaniels and these little mutts sitting around. This big, tough dog walks in. They've just divested him of his .38. Can you see the rumors among the dogs? Oh, look, he's a police dog. He's a double. He's a police dog, and he's working for the mob. Who can you trust? Who can you trust? And the big old tough police dog sits there picking his teeth. A gun-toting dog. Well, you know, I saw that thing, and I read that piece, and I thought to myself, oh, boy. You know, I suspect that most people have never felt the brush of the organized mobs. It's all stuff you read. You know, cute little cutie pie little stuff like Breslin writes. You know, the mobs are just kind of lovable guys, you know, Big Augie and Little Freddie and all that stuff. Just lovable, nice guys. That's a myth, you know, that has persisted since the days of Damon Runyon. And it continues to... It's almost always written by New York writers. You know, this continual myth that actually these guys are just kind of lovable guys and they can't... they don't know how to run their business, you know, the gang, the kitchen. Oh, man, I want to tell you. Did I ever tell you about the time I got scared almost out of my bird one time about this thing, the mob scene? You want to hear about this? Well, I shouldn't tell you this. There's a lot of things you don't tell, I may tell you. Is it time yet, Jerry? You let me know. Is it time? Yeah, well, okay. This is WOR. I ought to give another station break so when the mob hits, they hit the other station, you know. This is WOR, New York. 710 on your jet action dial. That means we get the Jets. When I'm not here, the Jets are here. And they don't win any more than I do. However, nevertheless, it's a funny scene, you know. One day, this was when I was just getting started in this business, you know. And I was doing a show from a nightclub. Almost all my shows I used to do is for nightclubs, live shows. I used to do it, not remotes, anything like that, you know, with a band. I used to be the shows. I'd be up on the stage and doing the whole thing, see. Well, one night, I'm in this club, and I'm working away, see. And this is in a large city, which... I'll have to invent a name because I don't want the city to get a bad name just from some rotten thing I say. Let's invent a name, some improbable name. Lower Slobovia. No, that's too obvious. So I got to invent some name that just has no meaning at all. Philadelphia. How's that sound? Does that sound like a suitable kooky name, right? All right. Let's assume this mythical city of Philadelphia. See where I was working. I was in this club, and nightclub. This is on a quiet midweek night. Now, anybody who's ever worked in nightclubs knows that there's a sag in the middle of the week, see. There's a whole lot of guys who rush out. Believe it or not, Monday is not the slow night in the club. These are guys who have come out to drink themselves insensible on Monday night because the weekend hasn't worked out. And, that's right. There's a whole bunch of guys that come, I gotta get out of the house. And the next thing you know, they're in the club on Monday night, and they're getting bombed and yelling and hollering. Well, I could tell you stories for hours about working in a club. You know, there's stuff that you never hear comics ever tell about. Like the time I was out on stage, and I was doing my bit right here in town in a review I was in. And in the middle of this bit that I was doing, this guy got up, all of a sudden, I see him stand up in a very elegant club. He stands up, and he has in his hand a shrimp cocktail. You know, with the ice? He takes the shrimp cocktail. A very elegant guy, and he's hurling obscenities, and he's hollering at this chick, you tramp! And he's hollering at his wife. See, he jumps up, and she's wearing these sables and all this stuff. You know how nightclubs are, they're sitting there with the champagne. And he takes the shrimp cocktail, and he just turns it over, and bam! He slams it right on top of her head. And she's sitting there with this glass on top of her head, the shrimp cocktail, and the shrimps are falling down over her, her 4-hour hairdo. You can just see she's got one of these big hairdos. And the shrimp cocktail comes down, and some guy is sitting at the next table says, hey, why don't you give her some cocktail sauce? You can't eat one of them shrimps without nothing on it. And with that, he says, that's right! And he reaches down, and he grabs this thing full of, shrimp sauce, this red stuff, hot stuff, and he pours it on her head. Well, just about the time he's pouring the shrimp cocktail, I'm in the middle of my bed, see? The back door slams open, and 1,200 cops at least come pouring in, and this guy, somebody called the police immediately, see? And he turns around, and he starts yelling at the cops. With that, see, he's turned his back on his wife, see? With that, she reaches over, and she grabs from the next table a bottle of champagne, which was sitting in the champagne bucket, and immediately the entire crowd says, "Look out!" And just about as he starts to turn around, pow! He gets it on the noggin. With the champagne now. She's got a shrimp cocktail on his head. He's got a bottle of champagne dribbling down over his ears. And he's standing in the middle of the floor. She didn't knock him out. In the movies, they always get knocked out the minute they get hit about. The bottle just bounced off this guy's head. It went clunk, like that. It's a very great thing. The only time I've ever seen anybody really get hit with a bottle, and I'm so conditioned to movies that anytime anybody gets hit with a bottle, the bottle breaks and the guy falls down, right? You notice. It doesn't happen in real life. It went clunk, bounced off his head. Champagne is now pouring down her arm. See, she's got it holding up like that. The champagne is pouring down her arm. It's running into her bra. The champagne is pouring out. She's got a shrimp cocktail on her head. She takes the bottle. She hits him again. It goes plunk. He turns around, and he said the greatest line of the night. None of us comics could top it. He turns around, he says, in a very suddenly, a mild voice, he says, "Stop that." And what was even funnier, she did. And there they stood. And the police sergeant says, "Now don't you feel silly. Look what you done." The cop, he didn't know it. And she says, "I'll have to get my dress cleaned. It's got shrimp cocktail sauce all over it." She starts to cry. And then with that, the husband says, there, honey, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. I'll buy you a new one. And all the while, I'm standing up on a stage with egg all over my face. Because somebody threw an egg at me in the middle of that scene, see? So, it just began to build up. Oh, my God. And then the night, do you want to hear another one? The night I'm up again. I'm up, I don't know why I'm telling you this. I've never told this stuff on the air. One night I'm in the middle of a bit, see, and again in the nightclub. This was not in Philadelphia. This was here in town. And I'm working away up there. And all of a sudden, a lady stands up in the middle of the crowd. Very distinguished-looking lady. She had pearls and stuff, Yeah, that's the kind that go to these clubs, She stands up in the middle of this very dramatic bit I'm working on. See, she stands up and she says, "Where's the John?" She shouts, and just as she gets it up, "Where's the John?" Her eyes closed, and she fell face forward like a redwood tree that has been cut off at the roots. She just fell face forward right down on a table of a large group of big spenders, big butter and egg men from Queens who were sitting there with their ladies. The crowd roared, and there I am again, see. Well, it wasn't more than 3 weeks later. I'm working away, and a waiter comes out of the kitchen. This is something that the nightclub comics always has to fight, waiters coming out of the kitchen, see. So the waiter comes out of the kitchen. Again, I'm in the middle of a big bit, see, and the crowd is roaring. I'm working them up, see. Just ready to hit the punchline, see. Oh, this is something that makes guys flip. I'm just ready to give them the zinger, When all of a sudden, out of the swinging doors comes this waiter. Well, it just so happened that next to the swinging doors was a phone booth, which was a terrible place to put a phone booth. With that, he comes out of the swinging doors with a tremendous tray over his head, covered completely with spaghetti and pizza. He must have had 400 different plates of different types of spaghetti. Spaghetti with clam sauce, spaghetti with tomato sauce, spaghetti with old shoes. They served that there, too. Spaghetti with dish rags, every kind of spaghetti, see, with all kinds of gooey stuff. He had about 5 or 6 pizza pies all over the place, 19 bottles of beer, He comes out of the kitchen. He's swinging away when all of a sudden this drunk sticks his head out of the phone booth. Says, "Hey, you got a dime?" With that, the waiter, who was a little thrown off balance by that, he falls over and into the phone booth. Goes the entire tray. The drunk is sitting there, see, over the phone. Goes the entire tray. Pow, with the spaghetti, with the pizza. Well, it was such a fantastic moment. Because it was in front of everybody. They could all see it, see. After the show, a guy comes up to me, see. And he's in the business. The guy was an agent from MCA. He comes up to me, see, and he says, "Hey, Shepard," and he says, "Hey, listen, that was a great bit. That great bit, you know, the one you set up with the waiter and the drunk and it's a fantastic bit." He says, "Keep it in the act. It's great." I said, "Don't worry, Manny. We got 1 billion of them." Well, anyway, I'll tell you the story of the mob, though. You want to hear this one? One night, I'm working in this place, and this is a mythical city. As I say, I just have to think of that because I don't want to, malign a city. We'll call it Philadelphia, and I'm working in this club, say, and everything's going along fine. It's been going along for a couple of months, fine, see. And one day, in the middle of the thing, see, it's a quiet midweek night. Now, this is the sag of the nightclub world. The nightclub world sort of gets saddle sprung. It gets sort of sags around Tuesday and Wednesday. I mean, you could shoot shotguns off in the average club on say Tuesday night and never hit anybody. Even the waiters are asleep. So here it is. It's Wednesday night. Nothing's happening. It's a quiet night. When I see suddenly, I'm up on the stage. See, when I see the door, they had a big kind of a fancy door, off to my right there, where the people would come in and be shown their tables. See, there's a lot of empty tables. And by the way, that's an old nightclub comic gag. Some guy will come backstage after he's been working out in front, and he's got his hands over his eyes, and you'll say to him, "What's the matter, Moni? What's the matter, Morty?" And Morty will say, "Oh, I got my snow blindness back again." Snow blindness means there ain't nobody out there, and you're looking at nothing but empty white tables. See? Oh, I could tell you funny stories about the moment that a comic, I'm sitting backstage ready to go on stage one night, and the comic who I followed, see, we both had things that we were doing in this review. Yeah, I was back in the dressing room, and I could hear dead silence out there, and I hear this guy working. See, he's working away. You can see, and then Manny says to Morty, and he's going away. Boop, boop, he's blowing his little horns and stuff, and he's got his whole act. Not the dead silence. And suddenly he's through. See, I know his cue line. He says, "And then I sent the word. That's enough of that." That's his big laugh. Nothing. Silence. See. Well, then the band goes, and he comes through the door. I'm about to go out, and his face is white like chalk. He says, "Don't go out." He says, "Don't go out." I said, "What's the matter, Joey?" He said, "Bombed. Bombed. Don't go out. They're waiting for you. They're made out of stone. Don't go out, please." And the band is going, da 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 da. These are terrible moments, and you have to go out. You gird your loins and you go out, and I look down, and there's nothing but 10 cigar store Indians sitting down there, made out of solid stone. Angry looks. Now it's my turn. Oh, man, you never hear about these things, do you? Oh, these are... Have you noticed that comics always have a curious look in the eye? You ever look carefully the next time you're looking at some show and some guy named Morty is out there, or Jackie or something. Look him close in the eye, and you'll find that everything about him is laughing and hollering. His arms are waving, he's blowing his horns, and he's tooting his things, and he's reading his jokes, all that stuff. But you look in the eye, and there's a curious sadness in the eye. That's because he has looked out over those vast seas of white tablecloths. He has looked down in a great crowd of unsmiling faces of stone wooden Indians. Bombed. Well, I'm sitting there unsuspecting, about to have one of my great moments in this club, and I'm working away. See, I'm up on the thing there, and there's a few people. There's enough people in there. It's pretty good, actually, for Wednesday night, but enough so that you could see individual people coming in, see. So all of a sudden, I see coming in there, and I'm in the middle of this thing, see, because when you're working, your attention becomes almost super tense, super hypoed. You see things that I guess even people sitting down there don't see. You're conscious of everything, believe it or not. You're conscious of guys washing dishes out there, and you're conscious of stuff going on. Well, anyway, suddenly I see this crowd in a very tight knot. A very tight knot crowd comes in through the door. And the first thing that hit me was they're all wearing camel hair coats. These long coats, with hats. It was fantastic. Do you know that mobsters really do wear these hats that you see? I'm serious. I don't know where they... I raised my hand in abject humility to the sky. May I be struck by a lightning bolt from Brad Crandall. Right now, yes, I'll say he can throw lightning bolts. And I'm going to tell you, I sat there, and they came into, and instantly, it hit me. Somehow they were familiar. It was a familiar sight. This little crowd of guys wearing camel haircoats with the big hats come in, and the waiter immediately takes them, and you can see the little talk, see, the waiter takes them to this big round table. In the back, in the shadow, see, they all sit down. They'll take their coats off, wearing the camel haircoats. They all sit down, open up their coats, and a couple of them take their big hats off and lay them on the floor there beside them, see, and they just sit and look. And they have these big, wide faces, absolutely cold, unsmiling faces. They did not laugh once. They just sat there, see. I said, oh, my God, what is this? And I'm trying to do the accent. I said, oh, boy. I thought, what is it, the Internet? Is it the Internal Revenue Service? What, These 5 guys just look. And in the middle of them was a guy who was short and broader than the other. All the rest, he just sat there, see. Well, I finished my bit, and I'm about to beat a hasty retreat when suddenly the waiter, who was taking these guys back to the table, he comes running up and he grabs my elbow. And he says, hey, before you go back, he said, Big Frankie likes you. I said, who? It's Big Frankie likes you. I said, he does? He said, yeah. He wants to have a bite to eat with you after the show. I said, who? It's Big Frankie. I said, who's Big Frankie? He said, you kidding? You putting me on? I said, no, who is Big Frankie? He said, you better go. You better have something to eat with him. With that, he scurried away looking scared. When I go back into the kitchen dressing room we had like back there, and I get back in there, and one of the guys, the head waiter, comes back and he says, you better go with Big Frankie. Big Frankie has told one of his boys that he likes you, and he come in tonight to hear you. I said, who is he? He says, don't say it too loud, but Big Frankie owns the entire seaboard. Everything. I said, he owns everything? What do you mean? Is he like Rockefeller or something? He says, no, he really owns everything. Big Frankie runs the entire Eastern mob. I thought this was all movie stuff, see? I'm going to have something to eat with him. Well, the show finally winds up. And I go out in front, and these guys are gone. Except for one guy is standing by the door, wearing a long camel hair coat. The waiter comes up to me and says, he's one of Frankie's boys. He's waiting. I said, okay. Yeah, yeah, okay. And I go running over to this guy. He doesn't say a word. It was a fantastic scene. I'm telling you, I'm not inventing one bit of this. This is absolutely true. He says to me, come on. That's all he said, come on. And we go out through the lobby of this place. And we get into a long, believe it or not, they have long black cars. You know, the kind that are always described in the police reports. The escape was made in a black sedan of late model. Well, anyway, I get in this long black on the back seat, and there's a guy driving. I can hardly wait to see The Godfather, because, I've seen a little of that scene. There's a guy driving. I thought, oh, no. I know what happens. Every picture I was... Anytime they get Rod Steiger in the back seat of a car, it's curtains, And I sit in the back seat. I'm sitting on the edge of the seat. And this guy doesn't say a word, not a word. He never once opened his mouth. He just sat there. So he sat back against the cushions, and he's wearing his camel hair coat, and he's got a hat. And he's of this indeterminate age. He just looks tough, that's all. Just tough. He just sits there. He's looking out of the window. And the driver starts to drive. Doesn't tell him where to go, nothing. We start to drive. And I'm sitting there, oh, gee, what did I do? Big Frankie likes me. We drove about 4 blocks, just like that, just 4 blocks. And we stopped in front of this deli. It was an all-night deli, a well-known one. We stopped in front of it, which is usually filled with people. We stop in front of there's not a soul in there. I get out of the car. The guy who's with me gets out in front of me. He says, come on, Big Frankie's waiting. We go through the swinging doors, and the place is empty, except for the booth at the far end, next to the wall, where nobody can get behind him. Next to the wall. And I see this guy, the same guy that was in the middle of the crowd, of that little mob that came in and sat through the show. And he's just sitting there. He's wearing his camel hair coat, which is open. He's just sitting. And I am escorted back to his booth. And he says, hi, how are you? I said, hello. It's kind of nice of you to invite me to have something to eat. I always have something to eat after the show. And, gee, it's kind of nice of you to invite me like this. Sit down. I sit down. He doesn't say, you're supposed to know who he is. It's just like, you're sitting in front of God. God doesn't have to introduce himself, He does not have to say, my name is God, I'm glad to meet you. You just got hit by a truck, and I'm here to decide what's going to happen. None of this stuff, see. So I sit down at the booth. I just sit down, see. And it's a regular deli, see. It's not a fancy joint, It's a deli. And instantly a waiter comes over with a white towel over his arms, and he's standing there, very nervous. He says, yes, can I help you? But do you wish to have something to eat? And with that, what do you think mobsters eat? Well, Big Frankie says to the guy this, bring me my usual. I said, what do you want, kid? So you like the Fred Allen special. It's not bad with a Russian dressing. You like it pretty good. You make it good here. Get him a Fred Allen with a lot of Russian dressing on the side. Man, hurry up, Mo. Come on, let's go. And I want to tell you, that waiter, I have never seen a waiter move so fast in my life. That guy was a blur. Now, I have trouble with waiters in delis. I had one time hit me with a fork just because I wanted, some more celery tonic. But this waiter, he just went zap. He's gone. I can't figure out why the place is empty. And the other guy that introduced us, that brought me in, the guy that sat in the car is still sitting out in front, remember. He is now sitting in the next booth. He does not sit in the booth with me and the, Big Frankie, because after all, he does not sit next to the emperor. He is sitting in the next booth, and he's just sitting there watching, just looking around. And, of course, to make conversation, I said to Big Frankie, I said, it's kind of a nice place. I come here a lot. I've been here a lot of times, and I'm surprised, it's usually kind of filled with people. It's kind of an off night tonight, but, so I like to eat alone. I said, hey, excuse me, Big Frank? Biggie, Frank, Mr. Frank, Mr. Big Frank? Excuse me, you like to eat alone? Yeah, I don't like people around when I eat. Then I realized the place has been cleared. They just run them all out. Big Frank's coming in. So I'm waiting to see what his usual is. I'm sitting there. I don't know what he wants. You see, that's the whole point. These guys are very, very quiet. They never say much. They do not come in, and do the, the Rod Steiger bit when he's overplaying the gangster, The business, hey, where do you think you are? Come on, hit you not end of the mouth, They don't do that. They don't have to do that. That's greasy movie stuff, Oh, yeah. When you see the real article, you know what the real article is. He doesn't come in, hit you in the mouth and all that stuff. He just looks you in the eye, and it's all. And you know where the dog is buried, There's no fooling around. So he looks me in the eye and he says, I've been waiting for him to say something, see. He said, you like this sandwich here? He said, make it special for me. You like it. I'll tell you, friends, I have never seen a fatter sandwich in my life. They make a special one for Big Frank's friends. It's about 2.5 feet thick. I think they sliced up a whole turkey, Turkey, there was liver sausage, there was everything, black caviar, the whole bit. Fantastic sandwich, about maybe 2.5 feet thick, Now, I had that same sandwich in that place before, and it usually came. It looked a little bit like a postage stamp that had been on a diet. But this one, wow, it came out a great big plate, had pickles all over it, and birds and roses and the whole bit on it, They poured champagne on the top, so they want to make sure Frankie, he says, you like this sandwich? And then they gave him what he had. What do you think a mobster eats when he's relaxing in the quietness of an evening? Well, he had a whole cantaloupe. And it came as a whole cantaloupe, a big cantaloupe, fantastic cantaloupe, see? And I might point out, it was out of season. I mean, they probably sent Greasy Thumb Louie out all the way to California that instant to get him a cantaloupe, you know? And he just came back on a special kind of a jet or something, because he has a big cantaloupe. And I'll never forget what happened after that moment. He just turns around. He just looks at the guy. He says, Al. And with that, Alec, or Al, or whatever his name is, the other mobster, see, he jumps up and he runs around. See, the one thing about Mr. Big in the mob, he does nothing for himself. He jumps up and he whips out of his coat, this camel hair coat, he whips out the damnedest knife I ever saw in my life. He just goes, whap, and his knife comes out. He's got, oh my, you know, I never saw a folding bread knife. He just goes, whap, comes out like that, see, and he just takes the cantaloupe and he very carefully slices it down the middle for Big Frank, see. He slices the cantaloupe and he takes the two halves and he takes the seeds. Now, where do you hear this? He takes the seeds and he just dumps them out on the floor. Plop, plop, plop. And he lays the two cantaloupes down in front of Big Al, or Big Frank. He just lays them down, see. And Frank starts to eat. I have never seen in my life anything like the way this mobster ate that cantaloupe. He ducked his head, see, and he had a spoon. His face was about, I'd say, not more than 1.5 inches from the cantaloupe. And he's going, he's slopping in the cantaloupe. And I could see the cantaloupe seeds flying up around his face. And then he'd come up for air once in a while. He says, how's the sandwich, kid? He said, it was like watching a carnivorous animal feed. He finished the two cantaloupe halves, and all the while, you know, I'm so nervous. I'm sort of nibbling around the edge of the sandwich, saying, I don't want to, you know, I'm just sort of nibbling it. And he finishes, and he turns to me then, after he wipes his face, you know, he wipes his face on a tablecloth, you know, and he spits on the floor. He looks me in the eye. He says, you know, kid, you're all right. I listen to you. I listen to you every night. You're funny. Gee, thanks. Mr. Big Frankie. Call me Frankie. Thanks, Frankie. Glad you like, you know, what I do. You're funny. Keep your nose clean, you go far. I blow my nose a lot. I certainly do. I wash my nose every couple of hours, you know. I make sure that nothing happens to my nose. Yes, sir. You're funny. You're funny, kid. Al, take him where he wants to go. That's it. I get up, and I follow Al out of the door, that swing door, and I can see the waiters, about 3 waiters, looking with scared eyes from behind the counter, see. They're looking out. And I go through the swinging doors, and there's that big black car there, see. The door is wide open. The driver, who has not said one word through the entire evening, just sitting in the front seat, saying nothing. I noticed next to him, oddly enough, you know, of course, he's a businessman. You could tell he was wearing a business suit. And he had a briefcase just laying in the seat next to him. I suspect, you know, it contained leases and his checkbook and stuff like that. You know, it was kind of a bulgy briefcase, but nevertheless, I get in, I sit in the back, and Al turns to me and says, where do you want to go? They actually talk like that. He said, where do you want to go? I said, well, I couldn't tell you. What are you saying, huh? I said, take me back to the club. You hear that? The guy up in front, he shrugs. I never saw a man shrug without moving. Magic. I knew he was shrugging, meaning, yeah, I got it, see, but he didn't move a bit. He just stares forward. And the car pulls out. We drive 3 or 4 blocks. He comes a different way this time. We drive around the block about 3 times. I guess they're casing the front door of the club. They're just by sheer habit, you know. They cased the front door a couple of times, and I could see the 2 guys looking out. And finally, we arrive in front of the club where I was working, and Al finally says something to me. He says, "You know, kid, Big Frankie don't like many people. You're lucky." I said, "Thanks. Tell him, gee, I'll send him a Christmas card. What's his address?" And Don't worry. Don't worry, kid. He knows you like him. Yeah, I sure do. I'm glad he knows that. I sure do like him. Yeah. I get back in the club, and the manager comes out to me, and he says, "Did he tell you anything?" I said, "No, he ate cantaloupe." He says, "You what?" I says, "He ate cantaloupe." He said, "Didn't he say nothing?" I said, "No, just ate cantaloupe." He said, "Well, what did he say? Tell me exactly what he said." I said, "Well, he said, you're funny." He said, "Is that all?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, thank God." Oh. I said, "What's the matter? What's the matter, Hal?" He said, "I thought he was going to take over. I thought they were coming in to put the finger on us." I said, "The finger? What do you mean?" He said, "Well, just keep your mouth shut about this." And he disappeared into the middle distance, sweating. Never forget that night. That's a true story you heard tonight, friends. Absolutely every detail, and I'm not kidding, every detail true. Except, of course, the name of the fictional city. It's a fictional city. It certainly was. And the name certainly wasn't Frankie, I'll tell you that. Because I kind of liked him, too. I liked the way his ears stuck out, straight out from his head, see, when he was buried down into the cantaloupe. I kind of liked that. It was kind of cute, you know, like a feeding panda. And so, about a week later, I go back to the same deli all by myself, see, with a couple of friends. It's a fantastic moment. I go back to the deli, see. Now, this deli, I hardly ever could even get a table in it before. You know, one of those things. "What do you want?" You know, you'd come in. "Well, I'd like a table." "Ah, table? What are you, out of your mind? Man, you know, Milton Berle's here tonight." You know, that kind of stuff. Well, I walk into the deli, and a hush fell. And I want to tell you, I saw him take 6 people away from a table and throw them out bodily. And I was seated at a table all by myself with my friends. The word had gotten out that Gene Shepard was liked by Big Frankie. And you don't mess around with guys that Big Frankie likes. And so the waiter comes over and says, what can I bring you?" I said, "Maybe one of Big Frankie's specials." He said, Yes, sir, yes, sir." I got a turkey sandwich. It was over 6 feet thick, dripping with Russian dressing. It came with birds, a side order of black caviar, sliced onions, 2 dancing girls. Oh, man. This is WOR in New York, Fun City. You hear? I said WOR. You stay tuned for the news. You get it?